I'd like to call to order the public hearing. This public hearing is being held pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act. All members of the public will be given a reasonable time to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that is the subject of this hearing. All information, correspondence, petitions, or reports that have been received by noon today concerning the subject bylaw have been circulated to council and are available to the public as part of the meeting package. Staff will provide their report, followed by an opportunity for the applicant to speak. Members of the public who have pre-registered to speak have been added to the speakers list in the order that the requests were received. Those pre-registered will be provided the opportunity for public comment according to the order of the speakers list, followed by comment from those who have not pre-registered. Anyone who has not pre-registered can still attend council chambers and wait to speak following those on the speakers list, or alternatively can electronically participate by calling the conference line during the live hearing at 778-907-2071 and entering meeting ID 506-489-9374 and passcode 485186. Speakers will be asked to state their name and civic address. Please note that all representations, whether written, verbal, or electronic, are available to the public for viewing as part of the public record. Remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker and should include all the relevant information in their presentation. Further opportunity will be afforded to all members of the public to speak a second or third time with new information only, once all persons have had the opportunity to speak. Council may ask questions of staff, the applicant, and the public, but once the public hearing is over, no new information can be received. Council debate on the bylaw will take place during the regular council meeting following the conclusion of the public hearing. At that time, any questions of staff will be for clarification purposes only. The corporate officer will now provide information on the notice of this public hearing.
Thanks, Mayor Holmes. Notice of the public hearing was given by posting on the public notice boards at Municipal Hall, the website, and Summerland Review issues of June 15th and 22nd. And in addition, 11 notices were mailed to owners and occupiers of the surrounding areas on June 9th, or surrounding properties on June 9th.
Thank you. Now I'll ask Mr. Dolovitt to introduce the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Let's wait for the slides to come on. Okay, the district is in receipt of a rezoning application at 8307 Jones Flat Road to allow for the construction of a new industrial bay building for a total of 6 industrial bays total at this site. So currently within the district's official community plan, the property is designated as light industrial in the district's OCP. It's located in the Logie Road industrial area, identified in the district's OCP. And this property is the last lot, as you can see on the right-hand side there of the zoning bylaw, that's currently zoned as country residential lot versus industrial, light industrial zoning as the rest of the properties in that Logie Road industrial area. On the property currently is an existing single-family dwelling that is proposed to be demolished by the applicant. So the applicant has provided us a detailed site plan and elevation drawings to accommodate the rezoning request. These plans have been updated a few times following the review of internal comments as well as comments from our advisory planning commission. Proposed is a 2-story, 6-bay industrial building with landscape buffers located on the east side as well as the north side of the subject property in conformance with the district's zoning bylaw. For the landscape buffering requirements between industrial properties as well as residential and agricultural properties. The subject property is also located outside the district's sanitary sewer service area, so it is being proposed to be serviced through an on-site septic system located east of the building. The overhead doors of the building, as shown on these renderings, are situated facing north towards Jones Flat Road. And as well, you can see on the rendering on the very the east side of the building, there is a caretaker's suite that's located on the top floor of the industrial bay building. And here is the proposed floor plan. You can see the 6 individual bays being proposed, as well as that rooftop caretaker suite and the total square footage of the caretaker suite. The applicant is proposing to relocate its business, a motorcycle tours and rentals company, into 3 of the total of 6 bays in the building. For the zoning bylaw amendment, that's the subject of the public hearing today. Specifically, what's being requested is to rezone the property from CR1 country residential to M1 light industrial with the following site-specific variances. According to the district's zoning bylaw, the front yard is considered the one fronting Industrial Avenue currently on this property. The applicant has requested that one of the site-specific amendments is to consider Jones Flat Road as the front property line for the purpose of placing that industrial building on the property, which I'll get into the reasons for that. The second site-specific request is to allow for a new motorcycle sales and rentals use to be added to the zoning for this specific property, which is to accommodate the proposed business of Renedian Adventures to locate out of the space that's being constructed. So as previously mentioned, the subject property is in the Logie Road industrial area in the district's OCP and is planned for the continued attraction and retention of industrial-based businesses in Summerland. This area is surrounded by the ALR, but this pocket area of industrial properties is not included in the ALR. Specific policies related to this application includes to attract industrial-based businesses, to work to minimize land use conflicts with adjacent land uses, to require landscape screening and buffering, and to encourage the provision of business centers. So in the review of the list of permitted uses in the M1 zoning, this is the zoning that's being requested, light industrial, automotive equipment repair and shop is allowed, but not automotive sales and rentals, which would include motorcycles as part of that definition. So the applicant, if they were just requesting the M1 zone, could repair motorcycles, but could not sell or rent them to the public with that proposed zoning. As a result, the applicant is requesting that site-specific amendment to allow for a new listed definition called motorcycle sales and rentals as a permitted use of the property. With respect to the Jones Flat Road front yard variance, this will allow the building to be located close to the south property line because the M1 zoning allows for a 0 meters setback for the rear yard setback when a property is adjacent to another industrial zone property. So in this case, to the south of this property is another industrial zone property. So the rear yard setback would default to that 0 meter setback. As well, the side yards and front yard setback requirements have also been accommodated with the proposed siting of the building. So in the discussion with this file, staff's perspective, staff notes that the Logie Road industrial area specifically targets new light industrial infill and development. Clean industrial bay buildings are encouraged in the OCP for the subject property, especially if those uses proposed are complementary to agriculture. This rezoning allows for the support of a local business to grow within the community and stay within the community, as well as the remaining bays will provide needed industrial base space for other businesses to grow and expand into. This rezoning will be a continuation of the existing industrial zone properties that are adjacent to Industrial Avenue. And here's just a Google street view of the current Industrial Avenue a street frontage. You can see from on the left-hand side, you got a number of industrial properties as well as further to the south. And then finally, as well, the landscaping buffers provided are in conformance with the district zoning bylaw and will separate the industrial use from the agricultural use to the north and then residential use to the east. Given the applicant's existing business and their needs to relocate to an expanded location, the motorcycle sales and rental use, a specific use requirement, is a reasonable request. Staff also doesn't see it being a large impact in comparison to the other industrial uses currently being allowed in the M1 zoning, such as automobile repair or contracted services. And then finally, for the front property line request, if industrial ave was considered the front yard, a number of variances would be required to site the building on the site as currently presented to council, including a rear yard setback and a front yard setback. The building will also be orientated to Jones Flat Road, as well as the driveway access off Jones Flat Road, on-site parking in the front, and overhead bay doors facing Jones Flat Road, which would make it easier from an emergency access personnel perspective to access the site via Jones Flat Road, as well as the address is Jones Flat Road, which may as well make it sense if the access is coming and the front yard is considered as Jones Flat Road. And for all those reasons, we're supportive of this, but happy to hear any questions from council on this.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant want to say anything? It's up to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Rene Cormier. I just thought it would be helpful for me to take you through 60 seconds of the backstory and a quick another 60 seconds to the building site, and then we could carry on. In my 30s, I took a motorcycle trip around the world for 4.5 years as a solo motorcycle traveler, covering 100,000 miles. And after that trip was finished, I published a book called The University of Gravel Roads. When you finish a big trip like that, it's always a difficult decision what to do next. So I went back to Africa, married a girl that I'd met there, and we started doing global motorcycle tours around the world, which includes Africa, Mongolia, Scotland, South America, and Canada. We've been doing this for now 13 years, but our biggest challenge in Canada was there was no motorcycle companies to rent bikes for us to run the tours. So that's why we started Canadian Motorcycle Rentals, so we could rent from one company to our next company. We have been in dire need of space for quite a long time, and we've been here for now 5 years. And this spot is ideal for our growing company. From the picture taken from the presentation so far, the red block is the approximate building, not to scale, of where the building will is proposed to exist on the site. We put it as far south, which is away from the agricultural side, across the road, north of Jones Flat Road, both to maximize the location of it with parking, but also to move the building as far away from our neighbors on the north. We've been developing these plans for 12 months now, and we think that we've got an excellent plan in place. We've had a chance to speak with our neighbors, both within these meetings and also on site, and some concerns with lighting from the building. I think we can address easily, and look forward to any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If council has any questions, just let me know. Councillor Betts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question, Mr. Cormier. With the proposed landscaping, will it help dull any of the sounds and the noises from the motorcycles?
Well, it's unlikely. I mean, it is trees every on center. I think there's 5 meters on center, which is according to the bylaw code. And it's unlikely that it will. Now, keep in mind that the number of motorcycles in that location will be approximately 10. And if one goes out every couple of days on rental, that would probably be a lot. There's a minimum amount of days you can rent the bike. So it's not as if there's going to be 100 motorcycles going in and out of that location every day. And sometimes when these bikes are rented, it's for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks at a time. So the amount of actual motorcycles coming in and out of our bay door will be Not significant.
Just as a follow-up, so in my previous residence here in Summerland, we were just across the highway from I think just a home business who fixed motorcycles, and there was a lot of revving engines and things that we found sometimes quite disturbing and distracting. But it could have been the nature of that individual's business. Is that the type of, like, is that involved in your servicing of the motorcycles that you deal with?
Great question. Well, we'll be on the 9 to 5 open business. So I think with a home-based business, a lot of that activity happens after hours and late at night, which might be part of the challenge. The other part of it is our motorcycles are all BMWs. They are serviced by the BMW shop in Kelowna. So they do 99% of the mechanicking kind of stuff on the bikes. So we will be able to do little stuff on the motorcycles, but the big repair stuff is all done in Kelowna.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Brad. The request for change on the industrial zoning bylaw to add motorcycle sales and rentals as a permitted use, that then goes under the policy and becomes adhered to the policy going forward. It's not just for this property, am I correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Peak, it's actually specific to just this property. And we will be adding the new definition to the bylaw, which, you know, if there is ever a competitor that comes into Summerland and wants to do motorcycle tours, then they would have the opportunity to use that definition, but it would only be applied to this specific property.
Thank you. And if I may have a second question, there was something about the advisory with some concern about the height of the building. Can you explain that a little bit since I wasn't available to that meeting?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Peak. The initial request that came in from the application was a variance request as well for the height to go up to 14 meters. That was presented to the Advisory Planning Commission, and they recommended that that the plans be revised so that it fall within that 12-meter maximum, because they felt that the building could be designed to fit within that 12-meter maximum. And there was no need for that additional extra height in terms of a hardship claim. So to the applicant's credit, they have revised their application to fall within the permitted height limitations of our bylaw.
Thank you very kindly. I appreciate the explanation. Thank you very much for me.
Okay, thank you. So corporate officer, we received some written submissions. Couple in our package. Oh, wow. Scary.
We've received 4 in total.
Okay. Would any members of the public like to speak? I'll call a second time. Any members of the public like to speak? And third and final time, anybody like to speak? No, nothing else? Nothing else from council? Then I'll call this public hearing closed. Thank you very much. Moving straight into the regular council evening meeting. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. So we have a couple of adjustments to the agenda carried over from this afternoon. So item 7.5 from this afternoon will become 9.5 for tonight's. 7.6 will become 9.6. And the item removed from the consent agenda will go into 13. Okay, sound good. Corporate officer, any late items? No late items. Okay, if I could get the approval of the agenda as amended. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Betts, all in favor? And that's carried. Consent agenda, would anybody, it's just one set of minutes. Anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Don't see any. If we could get approval of the consent agenda. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Betts. And now bylaws from the public hearing we just received. Mr. Donovan, do I turn this over to you or do we just jump right into it?
Your worship, I don't have a presentation per se, so I am open to any questions so that council may have for third reading consideration.
Thank you. So this is for third reading. Councillor Van Elfen.
If there's no further questions, Mr. Mayor, I would like to pass the staff recommendation.
Okay. Second, Councillor Peak. Any discussion? Councillor Van Elfen.
I'd just like to briefly speak on it. I'm excited. I think this is a great addition to the Logie Industrial Park. And it's a much higher use for that piece of property, and it finally kind of finishes that area off as an industrial park. So I'm excited, and congratulations to the new business owner here in town. Thank you.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak to the written submissions that we received. Some one in favor and some against. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, we took into account and into consideration your discussion about the community at the end of Jones Flat Road. And I certainly see that's very important. For me, there was certain considerations in terms of the zoning in that region, in that area, as well as a Summerland local business that is looking to expand and grow with actually a really beautiful building and opportunity. So as a council and as legislator, I'm trying to make up my mind and weighing these different factors. And I just wanted to let you know that for me, I took all of these considerations really seriously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I have the same to say. I was actually down in that area this morning at Deputy Diesel, so I drove right past the site and stopped and looked at it. And I thought that with the building located as far to the south as it was, hopefully it's not going to affect the property to the north. But it was a great looking building, and I look forward to him having a prosperous business there.
Thank you. Councillor Peak.
Thank you kindly, Your Worship. Yes, I've obviously looked at this land at other times, because when I was on council before, there were applications that came forward. With regard to the neighbors, I think that we've done the best we can with buffering and discussion to be able to mitigate some of their concerns. I do believe that the higher use of the property is a very good thing for that area. And I commend the people on being here for 5 years and looking to the opportunity to increase the value of their property and to add to the servicing and opportunities within Summerland. To have a global business located in Summerland is an attribute to the kind of things that we hope that people see in our community as well. So I'm very pleased that we have this kind of business, and I'm looking forward to the new building. I'm glad that you will have a caretaker on site, because I think that's important when you have a big investment.
Okay, thank you. So the motion's on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. On to my report. This morning, along with councillors Betts and Peak, we had the pleasure of attending the Summerland Secondary School graduation ceremony. Congratulations to all the 2023 graduating class as you set forth on new adventures and interact with the wider world. Yesterday, I took in the first Sunday market of the year, and it was packed. Congratulations and thank you to Rotary for once again taking the bull by the horns and organizing this special happening that brings vibrancy to our downtown core every Sunday throughout the summer. Also over the weekend, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I had the honor of participating in all 4 grand entries at the powwow between the lakes, which was held at the South Okanagan Event Center. Most of council were also able to attend at least one day of the powwow. It was a amazing display of Indigenous culture. It was a powerful, inspirational, and a lot of fun. Everybody I know who attended was absolutely blown away. And everyone I know who attended felt completely welcome to be at what is often thought an exclusively Indigenous event. The theme of the powwow was healing the nation. And as I said on Saturday, when they made the mistake of giving me the microphone, I said that nothing heals and brings people together more than music, dance, the arts, food, and culture. So congratulations to the Four Seasons Cultural Society for their incredible work pulling it all together. Speaking of cultural significance, Giant's Head Mountain has an important meaning to the Syilx Okanagan people, and it's recognized by everybody for its recreational and ecological value. On June 9th, Deputy Mayor Trainer, Councillor Barkwell, and Councillor Peak joined me up on the mountain for the official kickoff of phases 3 and 4 of the Giant's Head Mountain Trails redevelopment project. Syilx knowledge keeper Richard Armstrong provided a blessing as we unveiled a new Indigenous interpretive sign. Penticton Indian Band Chief Greg Gabriel and Municipal Affairs Minister Ann Kang were present, and both said a few words of congratulations and spoke about how the project demonstrated the value of working in partnership. Also in attendance were MLA Dan Ashton, representatives from the Okanagan Nation Alliance, Summerland Rotary, the project consultants associated in engineering, District of Summerland staff, and members of the media. Final design of phases 3 and 4 is underway, with construction scheduled for next spring. Work will include improvements to the upper section of the Grind Trail and connecting trails, as well as erosion control, brush removal, and fire hazard remediation, and remedial planting and invasive weed management. There will also be a new washroom at the park entrance, improvements to the upper parking lot washroom, and park road upgrades. There will also be continued collaboration with the Penticton Indian Band and the Okanagan Nation Alliance for additional interpretive signage. Following the kickoff, Deputy Mayor Trainer and I took Chief Gabriel and Minister Kang out for lunch. We updated the minister on our plans for a referendum for a new rec center, and we spoke about funding for municipal infrastructure. We also talked about the various collaborations between the PIB and ourselves. And of course, we told the minister all about the powwow. That's my report. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had the pleasure of attending part of the Between the Lakes powwow at the event center this past weekend. It was a great event, and I really appreciate the partnership of the Chamber of Commerce, who manned our booth at the powwow for 3 days, sharing information with the traveling public and area residents and inviting them to come check out Summerland. It's been a busy start to summer with farmers market starting up, the schools out for summer pool party, 1-day recycling weekend this past weekend, the longboard free ride event, and of course, various graduation activities. With all that busyness, I thought I would provide a gentle reminder that property taxes, including the eligible homeowner grants, are due Friday, July 7th. There's a 10% penalty for payments after that due date. Property tax notices were mailed on May 23rd. If you do not receive your notice in the mail, please call the district offices or email us. And please note also homeowners can no longer apply for their homeowner grant at Municipal Hall. They have to apply directly to the province. And you can find that online or give them a phone call. Giant's Head Road and Water Project is coming to its final phases. Final tie-ins for the water on the Hillborn side are now complete. And we have engaged ICBC to provide advice on traffic calming measures. Crews are working in the area between Gartrell and Hillborn to prepare the road surface pavement, which is being scheduled within the first half of July. With all that equipment working and the constant delivery of gravel and other materials, crews are doing their very best to minimize any road closures. But residents are asked to please obey all signage and follow the directions of flaggers on site for the project. Once we have the advice from ICBC, we will proceed with painting the lines and final signage placements. RCMP will be on site now and throughout the coming months intermittently to enforce against speeding in the area. Please note that the speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour unless otherwise posted. Finally, just a shout out to our fantastic park staff who have been keeping our parks and beaches clean. You may have noticed the sand seems extra beautiful and inviting these days. That's thanks to our new beach grooming machine that picks up branches and rocks, broken glass, and all manner of other debris from the sand, leaving it in a beautiful groomed state. I hope everyone gets out to our local beaches this summer to enjoy some rest and relaxation. With that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the CEO or myself? No, we'll go to the public comment opportunity. Anybody that would like to speak, come up to the podium, please. Regarding any agenda item.
Mary Ann McDonald, 6505 McDonald Place. It's item 9.3 on the agenda concerning the loan authorization for the rec center. My comment is, aren't you putting the cart before the horse? How do you know the public will vote in favor of borrowing that kind of money? Yes, it's in the council strategic plan, but I don't think there needs to be a rec center of the magnitude that has been put forth. And before passing this bylaw, don't you think it would be prudent for public input? We do not need a rec center that is comparable to Penticton's. Unlike Summerland, Penticton has a greater diversity of population and services outlying areas. Secondly, the tax increases as presented as 3.7 plus or minus yearly with dollar figures for 4 years are misleading. To give you an example, when the town endorsed sewer, the initial group that received a sewer hookup were told they would be paying a set amount for a 20-year period, then it would be removed from the utility bill. That hasn't happened, and in fact, the rate has continually increased. Now it is being endorsed as maintenance and upkeep. My concern is this too will happen with the rec center. Third, this past year alone, the 10% early paid reduction on the utility bill has been eliminated, which means the district has in effect added another tax hike to the majority of Summerland taxpayers. Additionally, there have been salary increases for council and the added salary for appointing a deputy mayor to the tune of about $7,200 a year. Fourth, I understand that municipal staff will be paid additional monies in lieu of stat holidays that fall on a Monday as a result of their compressed Tuesday to Friday work schedule. This reduced work week for municipal staff actually equates to a pay increase for staff and increased labor costs for the district. There are 4 remaining stats in 2023, and there will be 10 in 2024. Fifth, you have already taken $1 million of taxpayers' money to secure a $6 million grant for a solar field. You've endorsed spending roughly $250,000 to secure a grant of equal amount for EV chargers, which are not generating the anticipated monies. You borrowed the only thing that I really like. Can I finish just? I would just got a little bit.
Wrap up.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm glad you borrowed the money for the Giant's Head. This is taxpayers' money. There are tough economic times for many people, especially when the demographics of this community are mainly seniors. So who are you trying to please? The motto, build and they will come, doesn't work anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to any agenda item?
Hi, I'm Amy Harbor, 14516 Prairie Valley Road. My question is also on the Aquatic Center, and it's regarding information gathering. Just a bit of history. I asked for
sorry, Amy, this isn't really related to any specific agenda item. You can speak at the end of the meeting for.
It's regarding the pool and the information gathering, and with regard to the upcoming referendum and the loan authorization bylaw, which will include the referendum.
Then speak to the loan authorization bylaw, please.
Okay, I'm speaking to the loan authorization bylaw, which includes the referendum discussion. And so my question is, on February 17th, I put in an FOI for historical usage, revenue, and expenses on the pool, which came back at a cost of $3,100. So I modified that. I put it in again in March, and it came back at a cost of $360. Part of that was possibly going to be waived. But I decided that I needed some help to pay for that. So I put it in again this June, and it came So that was a cost of $150. And that came back at that price because it requires 8 hours, a quoted time of 8 hours to gather the information. But I've recently just received the acknowledgement letter that says that it's going to be two to 2.5 months to provide that information. So my concern with regard to the loan authorization bylaw and referendum is that my freedom of information request on the historic information, I want to make sure that that comes back prior to the referendum, because I feel like it's information that's important to all of the public. I also wonder, is my time gone? Okay,
Sorry.
so my question is council willing to commit to all outstanding FOI requests being fulfilled prior to the referendum, as it's very important information for the public?
Okay, so a councillor can bring that up during our discussion if they so choose. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other member of the public regarding agenda item? Okay, we'll move on to the development reports. Jubilee Road, DCC contribution. Mr. Williamson.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council. So I think Council's seen this a couple times prior, but the property owner and developer at 10518 Jubilee Road West is proposing to construct a 4-unit townhome development as previously supported by a rezoning application, a variance and development permit. In addition to the road frontage upgrades that they're required to complete as part of the SDS bylaw, including new pavement up to center line on all frontages, concrete curb and sidewalk. The developer is required to upgrade the water main from Dixon Avenue to Rumble Avenue on Jubilee Road in order to satisfy fire flow requirements. Aware of the financial hardship this could be on the development, staff have been looking for alternate solutions to keep the project feasible while maintaining an acceptable level of service for the development and surrounding residents of Summerland. In recognition of these values, the DCC bylaw lists this section of Jubilee Road West as a DCC roads project that developers contribute money to when they pick up their building permits or apply for final subdivision application. Since the developer is required to complete road upgrades on Jubilee Road West along their frontage and extending past it to facilitate the installation of the water main upgrade, staff think that it would be a reasonable request to contribute up to $106,145 from the roads DCC fund based on actual tendered costs by the developer's contractor. So again, they're completing a portion of a project that's listed in our roads DCC bylaw, or our DCC bylaw in the roads project section that we would otherwise be spending this money on. So they're completing it at this time as part of their development. And the scope of work that would be eligible for contribution is strictly for the roadworks on Jubilee Road West only. I can take any questions you may have, and our Director of Development Services is here and our Director of Works and Infrastructure, if you have any questions for them.
Thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Bobby, so with our contribution, will the paving of the road on Jubilee be fully done, or will it only be to center line of the road?
Yeah, through the chair. It would only be up to the center line of the road. Where we got this value from was from the engineer's estimate, which includes only up to center line of the road. And we would only be contributing what is the actual cost that the contractor supplies prices for.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for my awareness, this is kind of a new type of issue to me. So is it common to provide this kind of support for developments in municipal council? Is it an exception? Can you just speak to the background on this just a little bit for me, please?
Development.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Betts. This type of proposal we don't often get, to be honest. But on the staff side, we recognize that this type of a proposal is reasonable on the behalf of the app or the developer to ask for. In theory, you can imagine that we're taking DCC payments across all of the development community for the completion of these projects, and we're charging all developers for those projects. So if we were to take those payments through time from all of these other property owners, and then require this developer to construct Jubilee Road West while we're still taking that payment, it's almost like you're asking the developer to pay for it twice. Once with the on-site developer, and then second with other offsite developers that are making their contribution to the road. So for those, we don't often have that much large-scale development next to our arterial roads, or collector roads that are we've determined that are part of our DCC bylaw. Jubilee, Prairie Valley Road is one as well, Lakeshore Drive. But when we do, we do consider these type of scenario. And maybe Joe has any other further comments on that. Okay.
Okay. We're all good. Somebody want to bring a motion forward? Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to move the staff recommendation.
Okay. That's to add 106,000
For partial road reconstruction of Jubilee Road West from the roads DCC Reserve Fund.
Okay, the second, Councillor Patton. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries, none opposed. Good. Joe, could you just turn off the mic at the podium for me? Thanks. Item 9.2, UBCM Complete Communities Grant Downtown Action Plan Implementation, and we'll go to our Director of Development Services for that.
Thank you, Worship. So in July of 2022, District Council adopted a new Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan that provided a new future vision for the downtown neighborhood area. And this plan focused on three broad areas for the future of the downtown: land use intensification and density, infrastructure renewal, and public areas and gathering areas. The action plan also included a number of implementation projects for future work under Section 3.0 land use and zoning analysis. The action plan identified some new downtown district areas, and as well as a number of recommended future land use map changes in our official community plan, as well as policy changes, all in the theme of trying to encourage more residential development and intensification in the downtown core. Further, there were a number of zoning bylaw updates that were recommended to consider following an OCP review and amendment process. On top of that as well, in this past fall, Council's 2022 to 2026 strategic plan identified these implementation items under the theme of enhancing quality of life, and provided some target dates for staff to complete the OCP amendment by Q4 of this year, and then the zoning bylaw amendments related to the plan by Q3 of 2024. Staff recommends that Council supports the application of a new grant program that's been released just this past April from UBCM called the Complete Communities Grant. This grant provides a maximum of up to $150,000. And we were recommending that Council support an application of up to $100,500 to help the district achieve those land use implementation recommendations of the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan. Summerland's downtown is a fantastic example of an already established complete community, as there is great access to amenities, services, shops, and schools, all in a walkable environment from the existing road and sidewalk network. The proposed grant activities would provide staff technical support with GIS-based modeling, infrastructure analysis, and planning assessment to inform those OCP and zoning bylaw updates that are required. and to also test various scales of form and building function in the downtown core. As well, following this technical review, new OCP designations and zoning bylaw updates, as well as development permit guidelines can be drafted by staff that can be flexible, achievable, and based on known constraints such as the infrastructure in our downtown core, as well as development financing, which is proving to be a really significant constraint right now in the development industry. Finally, as kind of a side piece to this grant application is to provide recommendations to council on strategic land parcels within our downtown core that could be considered for pre-zoning to encourage and protect these sites for future development if they're of high importance to the community. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? I'll kick it off then. So for the OCP amendments that will require some public engagement, could you detail what's envisioned there?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Yeah, we already had in our work plan to initiate that public engagement with the broader community on the OCP amendments with our staff, and we will be still engaging on that starting, well, most likely going into September, October this next fall. We feel like we can do a better job of engaging and informing the public if we're successful with this grant and actually illustrating how can the downtown look with different forms of scale of density, and going through that process of placing, different parcels of land in view of a GIS-based model of, what does that do with regards to the form and function of the downtown core. So the idea with this grant would be we would be able to complement those engagement activities that were already part of our plan this year.
Okay, so I guess I'm wondering how committed we are to that time scale. They seem a bit aggressive to me, keeping in mind, as we discussed earlier, that we'll be right in the middle of the referendum at that time. And if we're talking about OCP amendments to the same part of town of where the proposed new rec center is going to be, I think that could lead to some confusion. I don't know. I think that's something to keep in mind. And so are we committed to that timeline by applying for the grant?
Your Worship, no, I don't think we are committed to that timeline. I think this grant will provide us probably a fixed deadline of when we need to complete the activities. Probably, I'd imagine around 2 years as part of the program. Those dates are what was provided in the council's strategic plan. They're entirely targets put on staff at the staff level through the strategic plan and can be amended by council through our quarterly updates that we provide to council.
I think we might need to look at that. Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. Brad, my question was, I would definitely support applying for this opportunity for funding. Do we have any idea when we would receive an answer back?
That's a good question. I think the province was hoping to get, this is a very quick turnaround for response. They released it at the end of April and wanted grant applications in by, I think it was June 16th, so last Friday. So we submitted the grant. I should preface that to council as a placeholder for this discussion to happen at today's meeting. But I expect that they would be wanting to release those funds fairly quickly for us. I'd imagine around August, if I was to hazard a guess, but you never know.
No, I know. It's a bit of a game. But anyway, my question leads into what the mayor was speaking about, which is it's all dependent on if those funds are available to and they come to us, then we can adjust where we're going in the future as to how fast we do it. There should be some consideration to what we're already going to be getting into in the fall. So just speak to the same point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Traynor.
No one has any further questions. I can bring this forward. Yeah, as presented on the TV.
Counselor Van Elfen seconding. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Item 9.3, loan authorization bylaw. Corporate officer, please.
Thanks, Mayor Holmes. So council's published strategic priorities indicate that a referendum is to take place in Q4 of 2023 to secure long-term or to secure borrowing for the recreation center project. And with that, before council is the required loan authorization bylaw for the recreation center to be considered for its first 3 readings. So following the first 3 readings, the bylaw and all supporting materials will be sent to the Inspector of Municipalities for consideration to receive its provincial statutory approval. This approval is expected to take anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. Once approval is received, the Chief Election Officer will set the date for the referendum, which must be held on a Saturday within 80 days of the receipt of approval and is expected to be at the end of October or beginning of November. So the next steps following the approval would be, or next steps after submitting the bylaw for approval would be to set the referendum question and to begin the process of planning the election or the referendum. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. To our corporate officer. So the reason that we're putting this in so early is because, please correct me if I'm wrong, there is only 2 intakes a year that we can do for to get a loan from the municipal finance authority. And so the reason that we're doing this is if we didn't hit this timeline, then we couldn't do it again until late fall, which would have been after our referendum date. Am I kind of on the right line there?
Through the chair to Councillor Patton. Yes and no. So if we are successful if the referendum passes, we could proceed with a spring 2024 borrowing to begin in accordance with the timeline that the Director of Finance previously provided. The reason we're submitting it this early is because it is quite a long process to go through. So it is, we draft the bylaw, we have to wait anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks to get provincial approval. Once we have that provincial approval, then we can go and hold the referendum, which must be within 80 days of that date of approval. If the referendum, so we have 80 days to hold the referendum, which would bring us to end of October, beginning of November. Following that approval, or following the referendum, if it passes, council can then adopt the bylaw, which then has a 1-month quashing period, and then it's sent to the regional district who actually borrows on behalf of the municipality. So they have to go through their own process. Once that's done, then they actually have a quashing period time. And then once that's all done, there's just a couple other steps, and then it can be submitted to MFA, which would bring us to the spring. Yeah.
I think it's all to do with timing. If we wait till our next council meeting, that could be late November before it's.
Yeah. Which would put us past the time that we wanted to actually have the referendum.
Yes, we probably don't want to go to referendum in Christmas time. Anybody else? Councillor Trainer.
So we're currently waiting to hear back on the news of a federal grant for $25 million. If we hear back on that in the next, say couple of months before, it's obviously, it won't change the question, right? So it will stay the same, but we would just obviously borrow less. Okay, but we'd still be asking the same question. Okay. And then I'll also ask Amy's question about FOI requests related to the pool. What do we think that that's possible to get information out that does come in through FOIs about the pool? I mean, obviously there's got to be a cutoff, right, at some point, but how does staff feel about that?
So through the mayor to Councillor Trainer, Deputy Mayor Trainer. So FOIs are managed as they come in. And when an FOI is received, you have 30 business days from that date to process it. There are exemptions under the Act. There's 3 of them that can allow for an additional 30-day exemption. And then there's further exemptions under the Act that you actually have to apply to the commissioner for to extend it beyond that 60 days. So we are managing the best that we can when a request comes in. But with our current capacity, it can depend on the nature of the request. It depends on how many departments it interacts. We don't have one designated person doing FOIs. So when a request comes in, it's not that one person handles it. It's usually kind of almost a department or organizational wide thing, depending on the nature of it. So we will do our best to get them within our deadline. We do normally have a 30-day deadline. We can extend for an additional 30 as long as it meets one of those 3 reasons. If it doesn't, then we have to respond within the 30 days. So we'll do our best. But I believe the specific one that Ms. Harbour was talking about, it would legislatively, it would be released before the referendum.
Okay, thank you for that, Kendra.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question actually is a follow-up to Deputy Mayor Trainers in terms of people ultimately looking for information regarding facts to do with our recreation center. Is there a better way to ask for this information than with a FOI request? For example, sending it to our Director of Community Services so it can go into the fact page, something like that. I just know that there's, for example, we have the Regional Connections, has a lot of fact on there. I don't know if we wanted to kind of build that into our communication strategy that we're developing right now.
We're digressing a bit here, but if the CIO or corporate officer is willing, don't feel you're under the gun. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to Councillor Betts. We do, where possible, take that open government approach where we put any and all information that we can of general interest on the website. As you noted, we have a dedicated website in this case containing all the reports as well as frequently asked questions and the ability to ask a question, and we try to upload that as regularly as possible. A lot of times with these freedom of information requests, they're wanting to go a lot deeper and a lot more specific to particular areas, and then that activates obligations under the legislation. The legislation is designed to release information except for those things that have to be redacted. And when we have to get into that process, then it comes to sometimes costs that are also dictated by the legislation, so that staff time and costs can be recovered in the investigation of that information. But completely agree from a communications approach. We're doing everything we can to get it on that website. I think that's the right approach for most people.
Okay, Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. There has been questions put to us by the public in terms of why we're doing the loan authorization and looking to have everything happen now. And when we were looking at costs and how we could fund and how we would distribute and whatever for the opportunity for an aquatic center, one of the things that we're taking in consideration, and I'm going to ask for a little help because I can't remember the exact amount, but there is increased costs for every month we don't look towards building the aquatic center. And that's part of the reason that we want to make sure that we at least get to the point that we have the loan authorization and come to the question, because that whole build will cost more the further it goes out in the future. And I don't have that amount in my head. And I make note that the treasurer is not here at the moment.
No, you're correct. I mean, the bottom line is we want a fall referendum. This is part of the process. We have to do this now. Any further questions, comments? Does somebody like to bring a motion on to the floor? Councillor Peak, the staff recommended?
Yes,
Yeah,
bring
the one
this
that's
one
on the
forward.
board. Second, Councillor Trainer. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? One opposed, Councillor Van Elfen. And that motion carries. Item 9.4, appointment of a chief election officer and deputy chief election officer for the referendum. Corporate officer.
Thank you again, Mayor Holmes. So as the referendum regarding the proposed recreation center is to be held in fall 2023, legislation requires that a chief election officer and deputy chief election officer be appointed by council for the purposes of conducting the referendum. So it is the recommendation of staff that for the 2023 referendum, that the corporate officer be appointed as the chief election officer, and that the deputy corporate officer and the corporate services assistant be appointed as the deputy chief election officers for the purposes of conducting the referendum.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Anybody want to bring a motion forward? Councillor Patton? As presented, there we go. Seconder? Councillor Peak, any discussion? All in favor? None opposed, that carries. Now, item 9.5, just kind of have to flip back to the afternoon agenda here, you guys. This is the annual report. And who's speaking of that? CL.
I just wanted to provide, I suppose, some opening remarks, and then there's obviously any questions we have come from council on it. But my opening remarks are just to say how very proud I am of, first of all, the annual report itself. I think if you thumb through that, it's an easy to read format. It outlines the work that's being undertaken very well, connecting back to council's priorities in 2022. And much work was done and many things were accomplished. But also it outlines the 2023 priorities down to the department level, again, connecting back to council's updated priorities. And so help set the course for the future. And a great deal of work goes into the preparation of the annual report, right down to all those individual departments and teams. And I just have to say, I'm very pleased with the resulting product that we have before council today.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peak.
Oh, I left my mic on. Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. I want to thank the staff for the work that goes into this report, but I want to mention to the public in particular that this is the kind of reporting that allows council to be transparent, to prove trustworthiness, and to show that we work towards the future of Summerland, not just every year that we're doing our maintenance work and the general work of the corporation. So I commend the staff and the council on the work that it takes to get this kind of report ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah, it's a statutory requirement, but it's also a great reference manual for everybody. Any further questions, discussion, comment? Anybody want to bring the motion forward? Councillor Trainer?
Yeah, I'll bring it forward. And I also wanted to just comment to Graham that it is really easy to read. And that's really nice. You know, a lot of times you get these and they're just full of text, but this is full of pictures and bullet points, and it's really easy to understand, especially for people who might not know too much about municipal government. So I think that if you put it on a prominent place on our website and share it on social media, that the public might enjoy reading it.
Okay. No. Oh, nobody seconded?
I brought it forward.
Okay, second, Councillor Betts. No further discussion. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Item 9.6, the revised statement of financial information. Is our Director of Finance here or CEO speaking to it? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak to this. I do see he's lurking in the background on Zoom, but he was called away for other obligations. So just to say that council approved the district's 2022 SOFI report at the June 5th council meeting. And in weeks following is discovered by staff that a minor allocation error had been made within the reported council expenditures, and the revised SOFI report has been corrected. And it's ready for council's approval prior to refiling with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. I think our deadline is still being made in that regard. I think it was the end of this month too. So we caught up before the deadline. We just need council's approval on the updated version.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council? Don't see any. Thank you, Councillor Peak. Second. Councillor Van Elfen, any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? None opposed? That's carries. Bylaws for adoption, the council procedure amendment bylaw, that's we discussed last meeting, and this changes our meeting dates. Amongst other things, this is up for adoption. So I don't know if we need to discuss it further, but
There's just that, and then there's also the adoption of the amended 2023 council meeting schedule. So there's just two
right.
resolutions as part of that.
Councillor Betts,
I'll bring forward the staff recommendation.
thank you. Second, Councillor Peak, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries. Notice of motion, any notice of motion? Councillor Van Alphen.
Sorry, you snuck up on me. Yes, I have a notice of motion and it would read to amend our procedure bylaw by live streaming our committee, the whole meetings to reflect council strategic priority of open and transparent governance.
Okay, thank you. So that'll come forward next council meeting?
Certainly.
Yeah, okay.
I've got a copy for you.
Okay, sure, you could email it to her as well, I'm sure, but.
In writing.
Items removed from the consent agenda of the letter from North Saanich. Councillor Betts, that was yours. So from the afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason that I brought this correspondence forward from North Saanich is because it's talking about British Columbia's Home for People Action Plan. And North Saanich as well has a fair amount of ALR land, and they are concerned with being able to meet the commitments of the new Home for People Action Plan. And I just wasn't sure where Summerland stood on this issue at this time. And I thought I'd take the opportunity to launch a conversation about it, or I don't know if we need a notice of motion or if Graham can speak to that.
No, we can certainly have a discussion. I know this is being discussed at the OBWB. I think there's an intention to write a letter regarding this that about just being cognizant of where we build houses important. You know, we shouldn't be building houses in floodplains, for example, just because it's because we need housing, right? So it's so I think the OBWB, you know, that's come discussion there that there's other things we need to be aware of, like where we build. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know it was on our correspondence a couple of meetings ago and I missed it. And we had a discussion at RDUS, OBWB, and they're looking for feedback from regional districts and municipalities on the 1 hectare rule that's in place now. And with the updated modern septic systems and things like that, they're looking for feedback. So I think there could be some leniency there in the future that we would be able to develop, you know, some of these larger lots with a secondary dwelling on them. So, I mean, you know, it's better than building in a floodplain for sure. So I think the OBWB is trying to work with us, not against us. Thank you.
Councillor Betts.
So am I to understand that the province is obviously they're trying to encourage housing starts in communities across British Columbia, but what are Summerland's obligations under the program at this time? Can we speak to that?
I don't know, Mr. Delavan.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and through your worship to Councillor Betts. So we haven't got a lot of detail yet on the proposed actual legislative changes. I'm aware because I just came back from a conference a couple of weeks ago that they're coming out this fall. And I think they've been somewhat public that those are coming forward in the fall with regards to the Housing for People plan. We do know that secondary suites are going to be allowed everywhere there's single family residential zoning. Some jurisdictions, especially regional districts, they still restrict secondary suites on residential lots. So I think the province is going to say, no, that if you have a house and it's zoned single family, you're going to have to allow a suite to be constructed as well. The key question on everyone's mind is this 3 to 4 units per residential lot. How is that going to work? Which municipalities are they targeting first? And they have indicated a bit of a hit list of communities that they're going to be targeting with their housing targets. And most likely that those legislative changes will happen first for those communities as well, that they want to see more density and infill. So it's too early to tell if Summerland will be directly affected yet, but we could be.
Could be like the empty house tax where they just target specific cities really, and it didn't really apply here. Didn't apply here. Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly. I appreciate Brad Dolovet's comments. And I know that they do have a list and it does tend to be larger communities. My concern would be that if they eventually come down where they're looking at smaller communities, that when we look at that we could have a significant impact on the cost of our local infrastructure if we were deemed to have to put a number of units on certain properties. And so we want to be careful of how that comes through and to be able to take a proactive approach to be able to make those comments in advance if it looks like it is coming down to smaller communities.
Okay, good. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Brad. So Brad, if we had an application today that came in and wanted to put 4 units on a single lot, similar to what they do in the city of Kelowna on just north of Ellis Street. And actually, I think in the hospital zone also, they allow 4 units on there. There'd be nothing stopping a citizen from coming forward and presenting the plan to us. So it's so all the province is going to do is more or less indicate to us that is an acceptable use for a single family, or I shouldn't call single family lot, but a lot to have more than one residential use on it. So in the case of Kelowna, you can put 4. So am I correct that if somebody did come forward today, that we would actually look at that type of application?
Dylan.
Your Worship, to Councillor Patton, yeah, every application that comes through our door, we process and bring forward to council if it requires council approval. I think the key thing that the province is trying to avoid is not requiring a rezoning and a public hearing process and delaying that application getting through from application to approval. So City of Kelowna, to their credit, like you said, I think it was called the RU7 zoning that was highly flexible and encouraged infill development up to 4 units. That I'm sure the province has watched that occur and indicated, oh, this is what we want to achieve, is something similar. So, but across all local governments. So, they're allowed up to 4 units in that area on Ellis Street, north of downtown. It's a highly flexible rezoning and something we may want to consider in certain areas, but of course has to be planned appropriately.
Thank you. Good discussion. So since we removed this from the consent agenda, we need a motion to receive it for information. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Peak, all in favor? And that carries. Councillor reports. Anybody have a report? Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What an incredible Friday night at the power between the lakes. I was just moved. It was so inspirational. So the regalia and the little children in their regalia was just mind-boggling, and I really enjoyed it. And it was an honor to be there with Councillor Eager Betts and yourself, Your Worship. And Saturday was farmers market in Penticton, and I worked there. I sell. And just to let you know, Elvis is alive and well. He bought eggs from me. That's probably why he looks so good. I don't know, but it was an interesting weekend, and then it was nice to see our Summerland market starting up on Sunday. It was an amazing crowd, and just stuff that's been on my mind lately. And I guess I'm going to go on another rant. I've been warned not to, but I can't help myself. Just lately, or over a while, some of these Facebook posts are appalling, and I'm disgusted. I've been on council for a lot of years, and I've witnessed it for years and years with Janice Brino, Peter Waterman, Tony Boot, our mayor today, our planner, our CAO, our deputy mayor. This stuff never just doesn't stop. And first time I was on council, it was a 3-year term. And I was never so proud to be asked to sit on the very first Summerland anti-bullying committee. And we went around this town and we had put up signs that this is a bully-free zone. We had a sign in the council chamber. It was a bully-free zone. And high school students were involved and public school students were involved. And I thought I was making a difference. Well, God, am I ever mistaken? Because what I've been witnessing today on Facebook is appalling. I am so grateful to sit on this council, and I'm grateful to the public for electing me. But I'm also grateful that I have a colleague, a professional woman, a businesswoman with 2 young children that juggles her schedule to serve the public, and another young lady with 3 children, a professional that juggles her schedule to try to serve the public to the best of our abilities. And then we're ridiculed and humiliated on Facebook. Shame on us. Today's graduation in Summerland, we got high school grads, we got middle school grads, I've got pictures of friends sending me pictures of preschool grads. These are the future of our community. They all have cell phones. We should all be ashamed of ourselves. This is our next generation of kids that'll be the future leaders of our community. And this is not the way we should be educating our children. And I just want one more word. I started to write a speech today, and this is how far I got. Could you turn your mic on and read that for me?
Amanda Todd.
End of conversation. Enough. I'm sick of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Any other council reports? Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not going to get the names correct, and I make reference to the fact that we received a letter from young students about the death of their nephew as a firefighter in Alberta, and they were interested in honoring him. And in consequence of that letter, the mayor invited them to come to the fire station, and we had this wonderful flag raising. The grandparents of these students were there. The students saw that the community responded. It was a very honoring moment. And those are the moments that I want us to remember in Summerland, because those are the ones that show the kind of community that we have and the kind of young people that are here. So I would just like to appreciate that happening. And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for making it possible.
Thank you, Councillor Peak. Anyone else? No. Public comment period.
Brad Besler. I wasn't planning on speaking today, Marty, but you wanted to talk a little trash. You wanted to get a little emotional, but I'm going to stick to the facts. You say my posts are appalling. When I called you out for the conflict of interest for you bringing forward a motion that you would financially benefit from? You're saying my posts are appalling when I show that Aaron Trainer breached the district policy? You're saying my posts are appalling when I say Graham Statt's misleading people when he says there's more hours during the work week when actually they're being reduced? You wanted to get all excited, Marty. All excited. What have I said that isn't true? Let's see you pipe up now, Marty. What have I said that isn't true? You're chewing your gum. Let's hear it.
No.
That was an absolutely pathetic performance today. Showed how classless you are, Marty. You're walking out. That shows how weak you are. If counselors are going to breach policy, then shame on you. I'm a citizen that has lived in Summerland for a long time. I have a right to address this. Okay? And again, what have I said that isn't true? Nothing. I bring the facts. I got the documents. So Marty showed what a clown he is, but I'm going to continue to be respectful. And I'll see you at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Marianne.
Okay. This is on another note altogether. When former CEO Linda Tynan pushed for approval of a land parcel in the James Lake area for AIM road services, it was for their brine pool only, but it now serves as their main equipment yard in the South Okanagan. As a result, there's been a huge increase in industrial traffic for Summerland. This wasn't discussed in the proposal. As good corporate citizens, local companies contribute to and invest in their local communities by delivering in-kind works and/or services and contributing to infrastructure projects. An example is Dawson Creek received a brand new rec center from Encana. Can you name one example here in Summerland? Reciprocal agreements for services between contractors and municipalities are quite common. Are there any such agreements in Summerland? Several for-profit business do business in Summerland, such as AIM, Summerland Sand and Gravel, or Summerland Ready Mix, who use our local roads in the course of delivering their services and put extraordinary wear and tear on our already crumbling infrastructure. Prairie Valley and South Victoria roads were not built to withstand this volume of industrial traffic, which is sometimes 24/7, and it is a cost to the district for rehab repair. Other jurisdictions have agreements in place for industrial users to contribute to or perform the works to repair damages caused by their commercial activities. Does this district have any such agreements in place? Has this council considered establishing a policy? That's the first part of it. I'm a little discombobulated. And the other one is for the staff compressed work week. Why was the trial period set for 18 months, not 6? If, as the CAO stated, the customer is the #1 priority and the hope that the extended hours make a real difference for residents and business community, I think a definition of real difference should be there. Okay, one other thing. How will this be measured and monitored during the trial period, and by who, and has a benchmark been established? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Don't see any. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Patton, Councillor Betts, all in favor?